What if Ned Stark took Renly's offer? Let's explore the depths of it in the video.
She won't care. Give me an hour and I can put 100 swords at your command.
And what should I do with 100 swords?
Strike! Tonight while the castle sleeps. We must get Joffrey away from his mother and into our custody. Protector of the realm will know he who holds the king holds the kingdom. Every moment you delay gives Cersei another moment to prepare. By the time Robert dies, it will be too late for the both of us.
What about Stannis?
Saving the Seven Kingdoms from Cersei and delivering them to Stannis. You have odd notions about protecting the realm.
Stannis is your older brother.
This isn't about the bloody line of succession. That didn't matter when you rebelled against the Mad King. It shouldn't matter now. What's best for the kingdoms? What's best for the people we rule? We all know what Stannis is. He inspires no love or loyalty. He's not a king. I am.
Ned stared up at Renly, wondering if he had heard properly. He can hardly look at the youngest Baratheon, trying to assert his calm at this time of madness bordering on treason. A part of him wants to reject him outright and send him off in shame. But that is not a luxury he has now. Unfortunately, for all his foolishness, Renly is telling the truth. Cersei will not respect She has already refused to leave when she had the chance. It is clear she will fight until the end of her crown. That means there is no backing down for him either, especially not when the throne is at risk. It is the least he can do for Robert.
100 swords, you say?
Yes, and after that we can decide what to do with Cersei and her children at our leisure.
Tywin Lannister will not dare strike at the capital while we have his daughter and grandchildren hostage. You are getting ahead of yourself, Renly. I will back this coup of yours, but with one condition. I will let you serve as protector of the realm, but only until Stannis can return and settle succession. Joffrey may not be Robert's heir, but neither are you. You haggle like a fishmonger's wife, Lord Stark. It is a hard bargain, but I suppose I have no choice in the matter. Now, we must meet with our allies before Cersei frightens them into inaction.
They move across the Red Keep, either personally or through proxies. They approach the lords who had joined Robert in his hunt, those who had served the court for years, and those who had only recently. Men like Jon Royce, Balon Swan, Giles Rosby, Tanda Stokeworth, and most importantly, the Tyrells and their bannermen have the largest households. Together they explain the issues to these lords, saying how they fear that Cersei will not relinquish the Iron Throne, even with Robert's decree. For those men who have been at court for years, they know just how unstable Cersei is, and agree. Others, like Sir Loras, require no prompting, and have their reasons for turning against the Queen and backing Renly. While not all pledge their swords, they get enough to challenge Cersei in a head-to-head match. Those who refuse to join promise to at least remain silent, and not get involved in the fighting. As they gather their swords, Renly leads the attack, storming Maegor's Holdfast. The guards respond quickly, trying to protect Cersei and her children, but they are not prepared for this battle, and many fall in a matter of minutes. Even the Kingsguard are no match, as Sir Loras and Balon rush into the Royal Tower, cutting down Sir Meryn and Boros without a problem. Sir Preston Greenfield joins them soon after. But as the fighting spreads, more of the Lannister men fall. They cannot hold the Holdfast against so many men, and those well-trained like these knights and men-at-arms. Soon enough, Tommen and Myrcella are taken into custody, but Joffrey and Cersei remain locked in their quarters, with Sir Barristan and the Hound protecting them. But as Sir Barristan hears the fighting growing more intense, he reaches for his weapon. A moment later, Renly, Sir Balon, and Loras Tyrell appear with bloodied weapons and a harsh look. They crowd around the narrow staircase, prepared to rush them if it comes to it.
Sir Barristan, please step aside. I don't want to hurt you. Don't worry, boy. You won't. Not with that sword, at least. But what is this madness you are doing? We're upholding the king's decree.
They're traitors. Traitors! Hound, Barristan, cut them down like the dogs they are.
Quiet, boy. The king's decree requires you to skulk through the night with swords in hand, murdering the men who have protected his family. Is that what the king wanted? No. He wanted his son under capable hands. He wanted Ned Stark watching over them. But answer me, sir. Do you think the queen would ever allow that? Do you think she would ever let Robert's will be carried out without a war?
I am the king. Do as I command.
Sir Barristan remains silent. He looks at the trio and then back at the chambers. Beside him, the hound cracked his knuckles and reaches for his sword. He's like a beast prepared to strike at him, but the old knight places a hand on his forearm.
No, this isn't our fight. I am sworn to protect the king. As am I. Renly, can I ask for your solemn word that the boy shall not be harmed?
I swear that I will not let the boy come to harm unless given a proper reason. Sir Barristan is far from pleased, but he knows that that is the best he's going to get. Slowly, he lets go of his sword, and the hound does the same. The three pass by and take custody of Joffrey and the Queen without another drop of blood spilled. The Queen and her children are placed under lock and key, with Sir Loras and Balon Swan guarding them instead of the Kingsguard. With the Red Keep secure, many of the Gold Cloaks, including Janis Slynt, defect to Ned. The King's Hand soon pens a letter to Stannis, telling them of how they managed to secure the Red Keep and urging him to return to King's Landing as soon as possible to claim the Iron Throne. In the meantime, Renly will remain as protector of the realm. The first act of Renly is to establish himself over Joffrey. Though he is in custody, the boy continues to resist and protest, loudly calling Renly and Ned traitors. If he is to appear secure in his position, he needs the boy's support. So, while Ned is meeting with the small council to discuss what will be done, Renly visits Joffrey in his chambers. As soon as he steps inside, he's greeted by a barrage of curses. The youngest Baratheon takes this all with a smile as he walks up and slaps Joffrey.
You hit me. You struck the king.
You're not king yet, and half the court has been waiting to do that for years. The difference is now you don't have your mother's skirts to hide under. Now why don't you sit down and we can talk about this properly?
You cannot speak to me like this. I am the king. I should have your head for this.
Renly slaps him again, hard enough to send Joffrey sprawling.
Maybe next time I should go for the stomach. Let me be very clear. You are not a king, and you will not be king for some time under me. But it is the kinder option than with Ned Stark. For some reason the Lord of Winterfell has gotten it into his head to make my brother king. I have little love for your mother, but I shudder to imagine my brother on the Iron Throne. So, if you are a good boy and kindly shut your mouth about kingship, then you might survive long enough to see your 18th name day.
And you expect me to believe you? That you won't try to use me?
Oh, I fully intend to use you, but at least you would be useful to me. To Ned and Stannis you are a threat.
Joffrey says nothing, looking at his feet and sulking like a pouty child as Renly walks off. Outside, Sir Loras is waiting for him.
Do you truly intend to help the boy? Of course not. Truthfully, Ned and my brother were too kind to his wife and son, but I have 5 years to get rid of Joffrey. That should be enough time to deal with Lord Stark and my brother. In the meantime, let us enjoy the fruits of our labor.
As protector of the realm, Renly begins making sweeping changes to the court, first by removing those he suspects of disloyalty. Varys and Pycelle are dismissed, with Littlefinger only being spared because of how useful he is, though he now only serves as an assistant to the new Master of Coin, Mace Tyrell. The rest of the seats on the small council are granted to men from the Stormlands and Reach loyal to Renly. However, Ned protests, saying they should wait for Stannis before making new appointments. Renly points out that as protector of the realm, he has the same authority to do this. Legally speaking, Renly is right, and Ned can only protest. He also begins making changes to the court, with those friendly to the Lannisters finding their influence and privileges being stripped away, and those who support their coup being richly rewarded. Renly hosts balls and feasts, much like Robert, but these are just pretexts to explain his position. He knows many people are worried about the coup, and Renly assures them that he is acting in the best interest of the realm, saying his target was Cersei and not the line of succession. But he slowly begins to charm each lord, inviting them to hunts with him and sharing drinks to win them over, so that they might begin to see him as the better choice for king. But it's not just the lords and lady whom Renly meets. It's also the small folk whom he rides up and down the streets, greeting them and throwing coins where he passes, or paying for their bread, gestures all meant to win their favor. He also journeys to the septs to pray with the septums and lavish the faith with rich donations. All the while he whispers how Stannis is advised by a foreign priestess, one who follows an alien god, or how Tywin has begun attacking even the septs in the Riverlands, condemning both of them. He paints himself as the one defending their line of succession, while Ned Stark wishes to challenge it by crowning Stannis, hinting that Ned also worships a foreign god. But these efforts are cut short, as a few days later, a messenger arrives, announcing that Stannis has arrived from Dragonstone. The royal fleet soon appears from the horizon, a mass of black ships rolling into Blackwater Bay like a tide of iron. From the Red Keep's towers, their banners are unmistakable and surprising. Gone is the crowned stag, and it's replaced by a heart surrounded by flames, a symbol of support to the Lord of Light. The rumors of Stannis' new religion had been brewing for some time now, and the sight of these banners serves as confirmation. The city murmurs with unease. Sailors make the sign of the Seven. Septons wring their hands as they hear of stories that have come from the shadows of Dragonstone, that the septs there are being turned into temples for this strange god, and those who protest are arrested. By the hour of dusk, Stannis rides through the gates of King's Landing with grim purpose. His arms bear no ornament, only dull steel and that same fiery heart. Behind him, Melisandre of Hussai walks, robes gliding across the cobblestones. They are accompanied by a handful of bannermen, a few Florents, Sir Davos, and the Narrow Sea houses. The rest of his retinue are sellswords, men-at-arms, and a scattering of knights. The court assembles in the throne room the next morning, summoned by Renly Baratheon, who now sits upon the Iron Throne. Not crowned, not robed in gold, but seated all the same. Stannis does not kneel.
You sit on the throne like it's yours. You assemble the council. You give commands. You shame our house. That throne belongs to me. Get off it before you hurt yourself upon its steel.
And you arrive with a foreign priestess and the promise of fire. What would our parents say if they saw you abandon the gods they worshipped? Besides, what makes you so certain this throne is yours? I am the protector of the realm.
And I am Robert's rightful heir, according to this letter by Ned Stark, the man Robert named his protector.
Was that before or after he handed that title to me? Either way, it seems you both are forgetting we have Robert's son here, Joffrey Baratheon.
Lord Renly, it seems you are forgetting what I've told you. My suspicions.
Yes, I have not. But they are simply that, suspicions. Do you have proof of it? Beyond rumors and gossip? Stannis' face reddens, bristling at the accusations, but he begins to present the evidence over the next few days. He's gathered genealogies, records from previous Baratheon heirs, showing just how strong their Baratheon features are. He even has some of Robert's bastards brought forward to show how much they resemble him. The hall holds its breath. Lords shift uncomfortably. The Tyrells watch with thinly veiled disdain. The High Septim stands with folded hands, his silence weightier than words. And then Renly laughs. I must say, I am impressed with this mummers show you've presented. Yes, I'll grant you that Joffrey lacks our brother's burlier features, but you have no proof of infidelity on Cersei's part, and it just so happens that this evidence comes to light after Robert dies. Why did you never present it to anyone else? Do you know what I think?
What is that?
You conspired with Eddard Stark. You intended to take the throne the moment Robert's breath failed. Don't lecture me on honor, brother. You and your northern ally set this fire.
Lord Stark was upholding the law.
The law? The law does not grant men the right to dispose of children and imprison queens. It does not allow foreign gods to take root in the soil of the Seven.
Ned stands at the foot of the dais, neither armored nor cloaked. His gray eyes remain still, unreadable.
Renly, I don't know what game you are playing, but you are making a mistake.
Enough from you, Lord Stark. For all your talk of honor, you've gladly thrown it aside when it becomes an inconvenience. Need I remind you, you staged this coup that arrested Cersei? It was an alliance of convenience. But you are the last man here allowed to wring their hands and call treason. A few begin to murmur around him. The High Septim calls him a pagan deceiver, and the Reachmen a hypocrite and a fraud. Even the likes of Jon Royce remain silent. Now the city names him a traitor, kingmaker, warmonger. Murmured tales among the small folk speak of how he stormed the Red Keep, how he had Joffrey bound, how he led a coup as his friend breathed his last. The faith will have no part in Rolar's foreign madness. I am a faithful servant of the Seven. I do not burn septs, nor worship prophecies in the dark. Whatever alliance I shared with Lord Stark was of necessity.
not desire. He acted rashly. I act for peace.
The nobles nod, slowly at first, then steadily. They see no heresy in Renly, only charm and color. They see Stannis as fire and shadow, and Ned as a cold-blooded conspirator from a land of a nameless tree. In the court, Ned is pushed aside. The Tyrells smile at him with tight lips. The small folk hiss at his cloak. Stannis is scorned by all but his dwindling loyalists, who mutter of betrayal and heresy. The faith calls for purity. The High Septim announces a new decree.
All lords must swear to the Seven, or relinquish their claims.
The gold cloaks begin raids in the city. R'hllor followers vanish, but there is still one foe they can agree on: Tywin Lannister. Since Tyrion's capture, him and Jaime have been rampaging across the Riverlands, burning it in defiance and demanding Tyrion be released. Yet, with the chaos in the capital, none of them have been able to properly act and stop Tywin, who had taken over almost all of the Riverlands, placing Riverrun under siege and forcing them on the defensive. Although they have Cersei under custody, she denies the incest claims, claiming Ned Stark is attempting to slander her and going along with Renly's story that Joffrey is a true-born heir in hopes of getting their support. This is far from an alliance, though, as Renly keeps Cersei as a hostage, simply using her to gain legitimacy while preventing Tywin from marching on King's Landing. But in the destruction, there is opportunity. The only other person who can prove their claim is Jaime, so Ned and Stannis decide to leave the capital, seeing that there is nothing to gain there, and march out against them. Renly is all too happy to let them, seeing as it is a chance to let his enemies destroy each other. However, while Ned and Arya leave, Sansa remains where she is for Ned's good behavior. Far from being a hostage, Sansa chooses to remain there, especially when she is promised to Loras Tyrell, giving the Tyrells a chance to rule Winterfell, depending on how this war goes. As Ned and Stannis depart, the Lord of Winterfell calls his banners, urging them to go to war. But Renly does not remain idle either. As the Lords of Winterfell and Dragonstone depart, Renly sends word to his own bannermen to gather his forces. Soon, the Rose of House Tyrell and the crowned stag of House Baratheon unfurl in the south as men answer the call. Knights from Highgarden, Hornhill, and Old Town march beside the Stormlanders with songs on their lips and steel in their hands. Together, they are a verdant tide moving northward, led by a king who smiles like summer and speaks as if the Seven themselves crowned him. Wherever he goes, he is welcomed with open arms. In village squares and along old roads, septims rise to greet him, and the small folk kneel to pray at his feet. His alliance with the faith grows stronger with each passing day, sanctified by sermons and crowned in the whispers of the common people. The true king, they call him, the protector of the faith, the light of the realm. Men volunteer by the hundreds. Peasants leave their plows. Merchants abandon their stalls. All come to fight beneath the Golden Rose and the Stag. For Renly's war has become more than a struggle for a throne. It is a crusade against heresy and corruption. He paints Ned Stark as a cold usurper, a northern conspirator who made war on a boy king and now walks beside shadow-summoning priests. Stannis is an evil demon worshipper, and Tywin Lannister is a monster who has abandoned all decency and threatens to drag his grandchildren into corruption too. The faith's reach stretches even into the Riverlands, and when Renly crosses into Tullylands, it is not as an invader, but as a savior. The Riverlords, hard-pressed to defend their lands and battered from the war, rally to Renly's host. Loras Bracken, Piper, Mallister, and Vance rally to his army. From the north, Ned Stark and Stannis Baratheon march slowly, pushing through scorched earth and shattered towns. They gather aid from the north, who remain staunchly loyal to the Starks. The Riverlands have been gutted by Tywin's vengeance. Fields lie fallow, rivers run red, and survivors cower in ruins. Every village and villager they pass stares with hollowed eyes. No cheers greet them, no songs are sung. Their army is large but weary. Northmen feel their distrust, bristling at every sideways glance. In Stannis' soldiers, grim-faced men from Dragonstone speak of fire and visions, of gods the riverfolk do not know. The small folk whisper of Melisandre, of fires that do not warm and shadows that kill. Though they share the same energy, Renly's light blinds where Stannis' fire burns. But where Renly wins hearts, Stannis wins battles. Tywin Lannister is a lord of unmatched cruelty, but even he cannot outmatch the relentless precision of Stannis Baratheon. When he arrives, Stannis is cautious and surgical, hitting him hard with carefully planned maneuvers that expose his weak points. These favor Stannis and force Tywin to retreat. The northern bannermen strike hard and begin cutting supply lines. Baratheon's fleet disrupts crossings. Slowly, methodically, the Lannister host is cornered, and then shattered. They get aid from an unexpected ally, Lord Beric and Thoros of Myr, the men initially sent out to hunt Sir Gregor, but they see Stannis and Melisandre as the one true king and rally to his side, acting as his scouts and rangers, providing him with the ability to track Tywin's retreat. It is Stannis who finally breaks them at the Battle of the Blue Fork. His forces split Tywin's rear with a forced river crossing, trapping him between two flanks. Arrows darken the sky, and then the shadow comes. Under a moonless night, a figure of smoke and blood slips into Tywin's tent. He never wakes. The lion dies in his sleep, a cold breath on his neck, the only sign of what passed. In the morning, all that remains is a corpse, pale and stiff, with no wound to show. The Lannisters break. Some surrender, some flee, but those under Jaime remain in Riverrun, unwilling to surrender or go home empty-handed. Stannis and Ned know what he needs. Proof, testimony, a confession that could damn Cersei and her children, and sanctify everything they've done. They race to seize him, but Renly is already there. The two forces collide at Tumbleton, where Jaime beats their initial assault back. Despite outnumbering his host nearly 3-1, the Kingslayer is no fool and batters their army, using the superior terrain to beat them back. 5 times the Tyrell Knights try to force a crossing, and 5 times they are beaten back. He launches a devastating counterattack that mauls Mace Tyrell's contingent during one retreat and sends him fleeing back to the main host. Seeing this, Renly commits all his forces to an all-or-nothing assault. Renly hides at the head of the glittering host, with Sir Loras Tyrell at his side, burning with pride and fury. The clash is brief, but fierce. Renly's host numbers decide the battle, though the defenses Jaime prepared are superb. Superior numbers simply allow them to flow through the gaps, and in the chaos, Loras breaks through to Jaime himself. What follows is no duel of honor. It is not even a duel at all. It is vengeance. Jaime cuts down 2 Reach Knights with savage grace, his blade flashing like sunlight on silver. But in Jaime's current state, Loras is faster, fueled not just by skill, but by hate. For Tywin, for the Lannisters, for the dishonor Jaime carries with him. Jaime is outnumbered. Their swords meet. Sparks fly. Jaime dies as Sir Loras's blade is buried in his throat. Ned watches from afar as the last hope of truth falls into the dust. But the war is not over yet. With Stannis having a powerful army, he can potentially challenge Renly now in the field. As though he might be outnumbered, Stannis is the far better commander, as he managed to defeat Tywin in a proper battle with better tactics. There is a chance he might even be able to defeat Renly, but the Protector of the Realm knows that these men are not truly his, but Ned Stark's. So he devises a plan to undermine Stannis' backing. He reaches out to the Greyjoys, hated by all, and with that disdain only ignited by Renly's religious rhetoric. But Renly offers them a chance to prove themselves, giving them leave to raid the north and take whatever territory they wish. Soon enough, they make their landing on the Stony Shore, and here Renly makes Ned an offer. He will allow them to return home and forgive any grievances between them if he remains in the north. Ned, torn between his duty to his people and Robert, realizes the north needs him now and urges Stannis to remain on Dragonstone and bide his time. He promises to support him when the time comes. Yet the Lord of Dragonstone is furious, seeing his army melt away before him. He is soon only left with his immediate vassals, a few thousand men, all woefully unfit to fight a war. With only a handful of soldiers, Stannis must retreat from the Riverlands. Renly continues to make offers, to yield to him and reclaim his place as Lord of Dragonstone and Storm's End, and even as his new Master of Law, but Stannis refuses. He will not accept anything less than the Iron Throne. Instead, he marches back to the Crownlands in hope of gathering allies in Cracklaw Point, yet none of them pledge their swords to him. So the proud army camped beneath Baratheon banners. Now tents are half empty, their fires few and flickering. The silence is heavier than any storm. Stannis Baratheon stands before what remains of his host, proud knights of Dragonstone, grizzled veterans, and a handful of loyal lords who have followed him from fire into ash. The only advantage is that Cracklaw Point's terrain makes it impossible for Renly to follow after him in force. Ned Stark is gone, back to the north, called by smoke and salt as Ironborn ravaged the Stony Shore. His banners have vanished like mist, his men marching home to protect their own, and with them went the strength of Stannis' war. Now comes Renly. From the south and west, the armies of the Reach and Stormlands move like a tide of gold and green. Renly's banners blot out the hills. Some advanced forces have already attacked, but they have been beaten back. In the bogs and swamps of this peninsula, Stannis wages a guerrilla war, hitting their supply lines and ambushing their patrols. But these are only delaying the inevitable. A guerrilla war like this can only be sustained with support from the locals, something that Stannis does not have. He cannot properly evacuate because the Cracklaw Point people will inform them of any escape attempt. So instead, the guerrilla war slowly grinds down to a fighting retreat. After one night, Stannis watches their campfires grow like a field of stars and knows he cannot win this battle. Their war already begins to grind down, and fewer enemy soldiers fall to his ambushes. So he turns to fire. In the heart of the Black Tent, Melisandre kneels beside the flames, her hands dancing through smoke and ember. Her voice is low, melodic, and inhuman.
There is still a way, a final light in the darkness. Capture your brother. His blood shall be used to summon the dragons.
It's kinslaying.
It is the path to victory. With your blood, you have slain a usurper. With how much he can offer, you can bring the Seven Kingdoms to heel.
Stannis does not speak. He only nods. A shadow is born that night and slips out from their camp and follows the lights of Renly's campfires. It slips beneath the tent flap without a sound, a wraith shaped like a man, darker than the night around it. It vanishes into the woods, carried by wind and vengeance. But this time, they are waiting. Tywin Lannister may be dead, but his bannermen are not fools. Survivors of the Blue Fork speak of the black magic used to slay their lord. Though the official claims that Tywin died of natural causes, some suspect poison, and others claim it is fouler things. The Reachmen take precautions, both pragmatic and spiritual. Septums led nightly prayers. Talismans of the Seven are hung on pikes. The Kingsguard doubles their watch. Even the Tyrells, once dismissive of such talk, now heed the signs. When the shadow comes, it does not find Renly. It finds Mace Tyrell, Lord of Highgarden, resting in Renly's pavilion. It cuts him down in the dark. Sir Barrett Morrigan and Bryce Caron follow soon after. Sir Emond Kai raises his sword and strikes it through the black fog. But the creature dissipates for only a moment, then reforms, driving its knife into his chest. But before it can search for Renly, Loras rushes forward, bearing a torch and driving it back. The shadowy monster recoils, hissing and trying to retreat. Brienne of Tarth comes in from behind, sweeping her sword and slashing at its head. This time, the shadow does not evade. The creature falls, while Renly lives. By the morrow, the Tyrell army marches out in a fury, eager to avenge his near-death experience. The death of Mace Tyrell stings, but he is an unremarkable commander whose death will not shake them. Instead, Loras uses it to stir the men into a rage as they rush forward, ignoring the injuries and ambushes suffered throughout the battle as they ride through the narrow spaces. They descend upon Stannis' army like a hammer. There is no battle, not truly, only a slaughter. Outnumbered 5-1, surrounded on three sides, Stannis' men die by the score. Arrows rain down like judgment. Horses charge like waves against rock. The Lord of Dragonstone refuses to flee. He fights until his sword is broken, until his horse is slain beneath him, until he is dragged from the field, bloodied and roaring for justice. His cries echo down the valley like a dirge. When he is brought before Renly, bound and beaten, he says only one thing.
You are not a king. You're a liar wearing Robert's face.
Renly does not reply. He only turns and orders his men to finish their job. Brienne of Tarth handles this, dragging Stannis to a block and beheading him. Sir Davos and the few remaining knights retreat to Dragonstone with what's left of their fleet. Their numbers are so few that Renly allows them to escape as they pose almost no threat, especially since the majority of the royal fleet defects back to them. With the end of this, Renly is now effectively the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. Though the Iron Islands, the North, and Dorne might grumble, they are disunified and unable to challenge him in any serious capacity. Renly instead turns his attention to ruling the Seven Kingdoms. He begins to declaw the Lannisters and other potential threats. With the Lannisters on their knees, Renly has Tommen made the new ruler of Castle Rock, while Garland is named Warden of the West. Meanwhile, Cersei is executed to prevent any more claims of incest from getting out. Joffrey is instead placed under a region commanded by Renly. Yet, in truth, he does little to prepare the king for his next task, instead simply giving him distractions. New weapons like repeating crossbows are sent to the king to play with, and he soon spends more time enjoying them than actually ruling, letting Renly sit the Iron Throne almost uncontested. Soon enough, he comes to rule the Iron Throne effectively as the king, and many whisper that Joffrey has little use, and Renly's already proven himself an able and likable king. When the usurpation happens, it does not begin with rebellion and fire, but with simple politics. Joffrey is effectively sidelined, locked into the Red Keep as a mere figurehead with no real allies, until one day, a haunting accident befalls him. Yet no one mourns him as many move on to Renly, who rules over a time of peace. A few threats like the Brotherhood without banners remains, but these are manageable. However, without a credible threat to his rule, Renly begins to rest on his laurels and enjoys the fruits of victory. One place that suffers is his relationship with the small folk. Although he remains as charming and endearing to them, Renly no longer makes those generous donations he once did, and does little to improve their situation. He gladly allows the lords to rule over them, however they see fit. He only intervenes when they have in such a way that it is impossible to ignore, but these are few and far between. Still, the realm slowly begins to recover. Debts are paid off bit by bit. The lands that were ravaged now recover, and there is peace beyond the periphery. Yet, the realm's issues do not truly change. There are no great reforms or improvements in people's lives. The small folk continue to toil as ever while the lords reap the benefits of their labor. But while the Seven Kingdoms remain quiet, the lands beyond undergo great change. The greatest of this is in Slaver's Bay, where Daenerys Targaryen conquers the cities and turns them into her kingdoms. Though these lands are rich and powerful, they are not her homeland, and she soon turns her gaze westward. In weeks, the salt winds of Blackwater Bay carry a new scent, smoke, and foreign steel. Daenerys Targaryen stands at the prow of her ship as it approaches Dragonstone. Above her, Drogon circles once, letting loose a roar that echoes across the cliffs. As she approaches, she finds the fiery heart of Stannis greeting them, yet she does not get the fight she is expecting. The garrison is commanded by Sir Davos Seaworth, who meets her.
You wish for this castle? Truth be told, I have no use for it.
So I hope you will do the wise thing and surrender.
Perhaps, but there are some terms I wish to discuss. Queen Shireen.
Lady Shireen. And what of her?
I will not see her harmed. She is the last of her father's line. I had served the Baratheons for many years, and I will not break faith with them now.
You are asking me to spare a girl who claims my title, who may one day take up arms against my family, whose uncle and father had taken up arms against my father.
As I had, Your Grace. I will be prepared to do so again if you do not accept these terms. I do not ask you to spare a usurper. I ask you to spare a girl, one who's already faced too much sadness in her life. Do this, and my men are yours.
My conquest of Slaver's Bay was bought with blood, the blood of the innocent and the helpless. I will not claim my throne with the blood of innocents. Have her swear to never take up arms against me, and she shall walk free along with all of your garrison.
It shall be done, Your Grace.
Shireen is named Lady of Storm's End, under Targaryen protection. A symbolic gesture, as she does not control it, but one that wins her the loyalty of her men. But while Dragonstone is the first landing, the Stormlands becomes the site of the first battles. Daenerys lands along Shipbreaker Bay, seizing Tarth and Eastermont with the remains of Stannis' fleet, and then advancing into the mainland. Soon enough, they begin to threaten the Rainwood and capture the castles there. Sir Davos uses his knowledge of the land to guide her, and they capture several more castles. But amidst the chaos, he begins recruiting some of Stannis' former allies, what few remain. He rides deep into the woods, accompanied by only a few trusted knights. While most would be fearful of traveling with such a small retinue, Davos does not fear, even as the shadows surround them and a flame ignites from a fiery sword.
Sir Davos, a pleasure as always. Lord Beric, you're looking well. What brings you to our neck of the woods? Not hunting outlaws, I hope. Wouldn't that be the crow calling the raven black? No, but perhaps looking for allies. I think you've heard of Daenerys. Don't tell me you've thrown in with the Dragon Queen. Have you forgotten the oath we've taken to serve King Stannis? I have not. She's offered to let Shireen become Lady of Storm's End. But we need help taking it. Your men know these woods better than anyone. Lady of Storm's End isn't the Iron Throne, Sir Davos. We vowed to make her queen. We also vow to serve the people. I love Shireen as if she were my own, but our duty is to the small folk as well. I've met the Dragon Queen. She serves the people more than Renly ever will. Helping her will fulfill our mission. Think on it, my friends.
Lord Beric spares him a glance and a polite nod before disappearing back into the woods. But as Daenerys continues her advance, another group rises in support of her, Dorne. The Martells, ever discontent under the Reach's shadow and distrust of the kings on the Iron Throne, swear their allegiance to Daenerys. Under Oberyn, they burst out from the Boneway and attack the Dornish marches, declaring for her. Seeing this threat, Renly gathers his forces in the Reach and moves to meet them, expecting an easy victory. They advance through the Kingswood, using the tree line to shield them from dragons. But even without them, Daenerys' army proves strong. The Unsullied are unlike anything the Reach has ever faced. Their discipline holds firm, even as they are outnumbered. Where Renly's levies break and scatter, the Unsullied form walls of unyielding steel. Dragons harass supply lines, burning outposts and stores with pinpoint precision. For the first time, Renly Baratheon does not feel untouchable. His strength, numbers, charm, and noble backing means little in the face of wildfire falling from the sky. He cannot overwhelm Daenerys, he cannot outmaneuver her dragons, and while his armies remain vast, they are not made for guerrilla warfare. They're slow, bloated, and unaccustomed to hardship. The war grinds into a stalemate. Daenerys captures small keeps and roads, but lacks the numbers to hold territory. Every victory gains her ground, but every night she must stretch her forces thinner to secure what she's taken. Even as she prepares to meet with the Dornish, she still lacks the manpower to hold more than Stormlands. But Renly will not allow her to gain even that. Sir Loras volunteers to confront her and intercept her forces before she can link up with the Dornish. He rides hard through the backroads, taking his best knights and their cavalry to confront them. The areas are dangerous and teeming with outlaws, but the youngest Tyrell does not stop. He strikes hard just as Daenerys and her forces gather around Weeping Town. He hits their rearguard with successive charges, causing serious damage even to the Unsullied, who are too slow in forming defensive lines. Loras roars and strikes again and again, trying to prevent them from regrouping. It is only when her sellswords and Dothraki gather their forces and prepare to charge that he finally withdraws. But it is too late. As he prepares to disappear into the woods, they hear Drogon roaring from above, and Daenerys lowers them to a dive. Pillars of fire erupt and send their riders bursting into flames. Men scream, and horses throw their riders. Loras tries to rally his men. There is no regrouping from this, and he is left alone just as Drogon lands in front of him. But rather than back down, he roars defiantly and charges. The Knight of Flowers only gets a few steps before the flames consume him. This victory is total, and Renly must retreat from the Stormlands entirely, leaving them in Daenerys' hands, which she soon presents to Shireen. Before departing, she begins to pay close attention to the conditions of the smallfolk, and unlike Renly, begins to take care of and improve their conditions. She punishes lords who mistreat the smallfolk and order her men to pay for food instead of stealing it. Daenerys also keeps her dragons under tight leash, preventing them from doing any harm to the people. In a matter of weeks, the small folk and many lordlings gather to her side as she cements her control in the Stormlands, posing a larger threat to the Reach as she can now attack from two sides. Renly cannot afford to ignore her any longer, and so envoys are sent, alliances proposed, bribes offered, but Daenerys wants no part in compromise. Meanwhile, Renly looks inward. His lords, once docile under his light hand, begin to murmur. The Tyrells are fractured, with Mace and Loras dead. It is a serious blow to their power, and some of their bannermen begin whispering that this is their chance to gain power and even rule the Reach. Smoke curls on the horizon as ravens take flight across Westeros. Word spreads. The Dragon Queen marches. No longer content with small strikes and skirmishes, Daenerys prepares her next push beyond the Stormlands. Though she does not have the men, she cannot afford to wait either. Renly Baratheon, long considered a man of silk and laughter, finally begins to act like a king of iron. He issues a call to arms, unlike any seen since the days of Aegon the Conqueror. From the golden fields of the Reach to the icy slopes of the Vale, from the crumbling towers of the Westerlands to the wide rivers of the Riverlands, Renly calls all banners. Promises are made, titles offered, old debts are called in. He seeks to gather the largest army in the history of Westeros, one that will break the Dragon Queen and end her claim once and for all. Yet, not all come. In the north, Lord Eddard Stark has watched. watched the land heal under Renly's reign, watched too how that healing favored the lords and not the people, watched how Cersei was executed for her crimes, while the men who stood by her were rewarded. And now he watches Daenerys Targaryen, the woman who spares children, who frees servants, who punishes cruel lords. When the ravens arrive, he does not answer. The North refuses Renly's call, and more than that, they rise in rebellion. Ned marches south, quiet and determined, striking at Renly's supply lines and castles along the rear. They lay siege to the crossing and begin sending more men to raid the rest of the riverlands, capturing castles and preventing supply lines in order to stop some riverlords from joining Renly's army. Some men must be diverted to prevent their lands from falling and to counter these raids. It isn't much, but it does cause some chaos in the army, and soon a border war begins to emerge as the Northmen retreat back to the neck each time the riverlords gather in strength. It is not conquest he seeks, but justice, and in that quest, they are aided by the Brotherhood without banners. They also begin their attacks across these supposed allies, hitting the riverlords and disappearing into the tributaries of the Trident or the Shadow of the Woods. They also act as guides, fulfilling Daenerys' wishes by protecting the fleeing smallfolk, smuggling villagers through enemy lines, and sabotaging the golden armies of the Reach. They help guide bands Northmen to raid the riverlords, allowing them to avoid enemy patrols. Renly, caught between the dragon's fire and the wolf's teeth, begins to unravel. His great army gathers at Harrenhal, numbering 150,000 strong, but with its size, it also becomes sluggish and difficult to manage. Supplies are a constant issue, and many are reluctant to fight dragons. Discontent festers. Some lords grumble about the war's cost, others push their agendas forward, trying to ask for favors from the king. Reachmen, filled with grief and fury, urge him to strike fast, to end it before Daenerys and Ned can link up. But Renly, once so confident, now hesitates. And then, it happens. From the south, Daenerys and her army arrive, perhaps a third of that size. The Stormlands rebels on one side and the Dornish light troops on the other, anchored by Unsullied and stiffened with sellswords and reachmen. They march north from the Reach, crossing the God's Eye to Harrenhal. From above, the dragon roars and flies overhead. Seeing their army starting to arrive, Renly realizes there is no time to waste. He gathers a force and orders them to take High Heart and secure the high grounds. Groups of reachmen under the command of Randyll Tarly rush off, setting up ballistas to fire upon the dragons. They bombard the armies as they march, but the armies do not break. During the initial attack, the dragons must break off to avoid being hit by those ballista bolts. Instead, it falls to the ground forces to break that assault. To break them, Roland Storm rushes out and attacks the hills. His men smash into the Tarly lines, battering them with furious attacks. But with arrows raining down on them, these attacks falter, and many men fall. They are only saved when Grey Worm detaches a group of Unsullied to assist them. The eunuchs simply lock shields and advance in perfect formation with their shields raised over their heads and hack their way to the top. Seeing the eunuchs crest the hill, Roland rallies his men and rushes in. Randyll Tarly fights hard, never breaking and never surrendering as he cuts through men left and right. But as the bastard of Nightsong destroys their heavy weapons, the Unsullied surround them and cut through his guards and surround him. But once these are taken care of, they look over and see the battle taking place. Sir Davos and Andrew Estermont rally their forces and face off against the Valemen's charge. Their lines fold, but the two maintain their discipline. Meanwhile, the Dornish launch probing attacks on the Westermen, eagerly exacting the revenge they had craved for years. In the center, Rivermen, Crownlanders, and Reachmen all rush to meet the Unsullied. Their lines buckle from the charge, but Grey Worm keeps his troops in good order and uses their Westerosi and Sellsword allies to stiffen their defenses. Above, Drogon and his fellow dragons roar as they unleash fire upon their foes. The rear lines go up in flames, preventing the men from fully committing to the assault and spreading panic. But this is also where Renly and his troops station their heavy weapons. Ballista bolts and boulders rain down on them, putting the dragons in danger of being hit. Renly continues to rally his troops, riding along the line and shouting encouragement. This prevents his army from collapsing entirely, but the dragons remain a problem. That is, until Drogon takes a bolt, which grazes his wing. The dragon roars and tumbles from the sky. It shrieks, and Daenerys barely rights it a few meters from the ground. She pulls up and watches the men below. Seeing them almost taking a dragon, the Westerosi rally and begin to push forward, aiming to envelop the Targaryen army. Although highly disciplined, they lack the numbers to hold them back, and their lines fold inward. But then, the strangest thing happens. Bands of men begin attacking from the rear. The Brotherhood, without banners, strikes at their flanks, leading bands of Northmen. Their numbers are few at first, but more men begin to arrive. Soon, thousands of Northmen pour forth, led by Ned Stark and flanked by Beric and Thoros. They strike at the Westerland flank, hitting this force and concentrating all their power there. With the gaps in their line, Oberyn rallies his Dornish and strikes back. With their army regaining ground, Drogon roars and takes flight once again, burning through the Valemen and giving Davos some relief. Viserion and Rhaegal soon join in, and while they burn through flanks, Daenerys overlooks the battle. She sees Grey Worm pushing his men forward, driving back the center, Ned Stark hammering the flanks, and Renly in his colorful armor, rallying the men and trying to reform their ranks. She knows exactly what to do. Gathering Drogon's strength, she urges him forward, dodging the ballista bolts and arrow storms that come, and unleashing fire. The entire column before her goes up in flames, and their armies burn. Renly is the last, trying to run away, but he is too slow, and feels the fires consume him. With Renly dead, the realm yields. One by one, the remaining lords bend the knee. The Tyrells, broken and leaderless, send envoys. The Vale retreats, the Riverlands open their gates, and from the Iron Throne to the Wall, Westeros belongs to the dragon once more. Daenerys enters the Red Keep, not as a conqueror, but as a queen returned. Beside her stands Shireen Baratheon, Lady of Storm's End, and her right, Lord Eddard Stark, tired, grim, and steadfast. And above them, the dragons soar. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.